Captain of the opposing team will submit to questioning from the affirmative team. Mr. Berlinski, would you like to start?
First question. Mr. Lynn, in the New York Review of Books this year, the famous Harvard biologist Richard Lewontin, who has a very low opinion of much of what passes as evolutionary science, the work of Richard Dawkins, for instance, explained why he nonetheless believed in essentially that kind of scientific explanation. And he said it's because we, meaning scientists like himself, have a prior commitment, a commitment to materialism. It is not that the methods and institutions of science compel us to accept a material explanation, but on the contrary, that we are forced by our a priori adherence to material causes to create a set of concepts that produce material explanations. And he said that commitment to materialism must be absolute, for we cannot allow a divine foot in the door. That's a direct quote from Lewontin. What I want to ask you is that if he were to teach that in the public schools as a doctrine, that is the truth of materialism as equivalent to rationality, would that be an establishment of religion in violation of the Constitution?
No, it just would be bad teaching because it's an illogical assumption. The truth is that one can be a theistic believer in evolution, as I am, and have absolutely no embarrassment about either side of that equation. I think the doctor should have probably given me a call, and I would have explained that you do not have to accept this materialism in order to be a believer, that evolution's the best and only credible description of this magnificent thing we call evolution of life.
By evolution, do you have in mind a system which employs only material causes without any guidance from a pre-existing intelligence to produce all of these living things up to and including human beings?
No, I certainly find it thrilling that my concept of God actually permits a God who could choose to start a process called evolution and develop in the process an incredible number of species, all of which fit in to a unique ecological niche. I find that one of the thrills of my theology.
It's nothing. You're speaking of God-guided evolution, then.
Of course I am, because most Americans, as we noted earlier, do in fact find no difference with that, because unlike the members of your panel, they understand that there are some questions that are theological, some are scientific, and that scientific questions don't involve, does God exist? That's not what your scientists should do.
Will you then support my effort that I've invited Eugenie Scott into already to get the National Academy of Sciences to explain clearly whether God-guided evolution is in fact permissible in the scientific area?
No, because science does not speak to that question at all. What you want science to do is to be able to speak.
They say it's unguided.
No, excuse me, I think they took that word out, didn't they?
The National Association of Biology Teachers took it out because it was too explicit. They imply the same thing pervasively throughout the statement, and so do all the other
I don't have any problem with them taking it out, because
it
it does have the implication that you suggested. I just think that what you want to do is make it impossible for someone to say with honesty and integrity that one believes in a divine creative process, a foot in the door, maybe more, all the way up to the knee in the door, and still believe that nothing, literally nothing that you have said or any of you have written, in fact, degrades the basic idea of evolution.
David Berlinski.
My interest in divine creation is negligible. But I do have a scientific question to ask you. In fact, two scientific questions, the second logical. Everyone familiar with the paleontological literature, every significant paleontologist says that there are gaps in the fossil record. Do you have a particular reason for demurring?
No, but there are gaps in the fossil record, of course, because the fossil record's only been examined for about 130 years. I didn't ask whether there was an explanation for the gaps. I asked whether you agree that the fossil record is full of gaps. Of course it has gaps.
Okay, so to that extent, the evidence does not support Darwin's theory of evolution.
No, that is absolutely wrong.
It follows as the night the day.
Of course not. How could you have a cell, for example, ladies and gentlemen, hundreds of millions of years old that would leave a fossil record? It would disintegrate. It would quite literally not be able to be found in the fossil record.
I never suggested that there may not be explanations of the gaps, but the fact that the fossil record does not on its face support Darwin's theory of evolution is a fact.
No, it does. It's just, your question was, does it prove everything yet? And the answer is, it doesn't prove anything yet. And once again, I say, how many times do we have to find those intermediate fossils? How many more steps in the progress from ancient horse to modern horse do we have to show you?
I gave you a quantitative answer. What would satisfy a scientifically respectable temperament? You spurned it. All I'm asking for is enlightenment on the significant point. Darwin's theory requires a multitude of continuous forms. We do not see that in the fossil record. In fact, major transitions are utterly incomplete. Will you accept that as an empirical fact?
Now, you sound like a guy who is writing a story about baseball, comes in the fourth inning and says, well, you know, I'm going to write about the fourth inning on. The first 3 innings didn't happen because I wasn't there to see them. The fact that we can't find every one of those intermediate fossils yet in 150...
We can't find any of the major transitions.
It's just that when we find them, Doctor, you
amphibia.
Say it's still not enough.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn. Thank you, Mr. Berlinski.
Thank you.